about $36 trillion in debt. And just like any other debt, they have to pay interest on it. The average interest rate of their debts is currently 3.3%, which sounds low, but it added to $882 billion of interest costs in 2024 alone.
3 reasons you need to start dating alcohol. Number 1, women message first. That's empowering.
That's around 13% of all federal spending just going to paying interest. And it's getting worse. The US is running a deficit, so that $800 billion of interest costs is paid for by borrowing more money. And borrowing more money means higher interest payments in the next year, and on and on. And truthfully, they can get away with this for a very long time, as long as there are buyers on the other side willing to lend to the government, and as long as investors have confidence in the US. There's so much more to unpack here about the long-term debt problems and the potential consequences for the global economies, but I just want to zoom in for a moment first and talk about the immediate debt problems. The debt ceiling.
This is Chief of
The
Security
US is
Flag.
actually fairly unique in that they have a legal limit for how
I've been
much
holed
money
up
the
in the
government
mansion
can
since
borrow. It's
yesterday,
decided
trying to
through
organize a
legislation
containment
passed by Congress,
Now
and
that
once
you're
the
here,
ceiling is
let's
reached,
lock
the
down
federal
that AO.
government cannot take on
I'll
new
track
debt,
body cams and
restricting
coordinate.
them to using cash on hand and incoming revenues. If this all sounds very familiar, it's because the last time the US reached its debt ceiling was just a couple of years ago, with the solution being to temporarily lift the debt ceiling until January 2nd, 2024. So at the beginning of this year, the debt ceiling came back into effect, limiting federal debt to $36.1 trillion, a cap that has likely been reached by now. So what exactly does this mean, and should you be worried about the US government defaulting on its obligations? The government has to continue paying its bills, social security checks, military salaries, the interest on the many treasury bonds they've sold. None of that spending can actually be stopped because it's been decided and budgeted for under previous legislation, which means the government must begin employing what it calls extraordinary measures. On the 17th of January, departing Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen wrote a letter to Congress indicating that such measures would begin on the 21st, and that from that day the US would be in a debt issuance suspension period. Extraordinary measures sounds very dramatic, but it's not really. There are some accounting tricks that the Treasury can use to free up some extra cash. They can suspend future investments, and they can just redeem previous investments earlier than they would have previously. When all the cash on hand and extraordinary measures have been exhausted, the government is left to survive on the incoming tax revenues. This would not be a good place to be. The government is spending more than they receive in revenues, so the money coming in only covers about 73% of spending. And to make matters worse, the timing of receiving revenues and outflows for spending and expenditures are not consistent. This chart is a little outdated, but it still demonstrates the point. In all years shown here, the US ran a budget deficit. But in any given month, sometimes spending is higher than revenues, and sometimes revenues are higher than spending. January is actually one of the months where revenues are typically higher than spending, but February and March are two of the worst months. So the longer this goes on, the more likely it is that the US government will run out of money. Missing a federal obligation would mean the US has defaulted. Missing payments on social programs like Social Security would impact the tens of millions of Americans who rely on it for their groceries and rent. It could hit national defense, an inability to pay personnel and equipment maintenance costs. Financial markets and the economy would almost certainly have a very negative reaction. In 2011, just the threat of potential defaults made mortgage rates rise by nearly 8%. So
Yeah, no, I know that there's a lot of people that have been, people have been very divided
I felt like
about,
this when I earned my jump
covering different
wings.
topics or doing different stuff. And overall, I feel like that's just what's always going to happen. Is that
Got the hardware.
I just always going to have, like, I mean, it's the same thing with like that Johnny Depp thing or like Lost Ark or Final Fantasy. There's just going to be different things that I focus on for different reasons, and that's going to be it, right? Do what you want, yeah, I always do, right? And that's what I've always tried to do. Anyway, we move on. So apparently this is a big fucking thing that happened, like this fire. I often agree with you on tariffs. But how about no tariffs on building materials for the next 3 years?
We'll take a look at that, actually.
Mr. President.
Please.
Yes. First of all, let me just take the opportunity to officially welcome you to Los Angeles.
Oh,
Really
nice.
appreciate you coming, and especially you come just a few days after your inauguration. So I want you to know that your presence here is very much appreciated. Let me also say that I know you had an opportunity to see the devastation. You've seen the extreme loss, the grief that people are going through here.
Yeah.
And we are 100% committed to getting this neighborhood rebuilt again. You mentioned a couple of things in terms of us expediting. So
I'm even looking at it.
I signed executive directives right away so that we could cut the and hold me to it.
This four groups said that.
No,
That would be it. They should be able to do it. They should be able to start tonight.
that will not be the case. You know, first we have to take care of to make sure that there's not getting rid of the hazardous waste, cleaning things up so that people can start right away. And just like you said, if somebody had their house was destroyed and they're going to rebuild essentially the same, maybe a little bit longer, a little bit higher, they really shouldn't have to go through much of a process. So I want you to know that we are expediting that. We absolutely need your help. We need the federal help.
You got it. I told you,
bet you get off
you will
on
have
this,
no
you sadistic
permit
wood
problem.
prick.
There will be zero delay. And as far as I'm concerned, you already have the permits.
And the research.
God can fuck this shit. Consciously optimistic.
I've had at least 8 groups of homeowners, and
Fuck,
I
center mass, I'm
worried about the
spraying
fact that they said it's 18 months exactly, and they were devastated. They want to start now. They want to start removing things. They're not allowed to do it now. And you mentioned hazardous waste. Well, the hazardous waste. What's hazardous waste? I mean, you're going to have to define that. We're going to go through a whole series of questions on determining what's hazardous.
Nope.
I just think you have to allow the people to go on their site and start the process tonight.
And we will.
Okay, good.
You can come back and check.
Last night, 18 months. So if that's not the answer, Mayor Bass, what is the answer? Because
What everybody said.
that's what we were all told last night.
Let me just tell you that we are going to do everything we can, slashing regulations, expediting everything so that people can begin the process right away. You know, we have the
Nobody gonna buy that shit because she's not giving them a number.
Disaster Recovery Center on Pico and Westwood. We have building and safety there. People are already contacting the local agencies. We're bringing our city departments together so that people don't get caught in the loop of going from one room to the next. We want them all to be in the same room so that you can get busy rebuilding ASAP. Absolutely. Yes. And we will clear the lots, absolutely, in the city and in the county. We are working together. Both levels of government are working in unity.
Is that to be 18 months? Is it not 18 months? Is it like that's the answer that we got, and that's what we're all hanging on?
Yes.
So if you're telling us now faster, is it 6 months? Is it? I mean, all of our lives, rents, all this stuff is weighing on this.
6 months is no good.
And the number one thing that we are going to do immediately, and you will see this happen, is to clear out the debris. And you know, we're concerned right now over the weekend because of the potential rain, but we are going to move as fast as we can. But we want you to be safe, and we want you to be back in your homes immediately.
But the people are willing to clean out their own debris. It doesn't
Yes,
cost
and
a
they
lot.
can.
You should have
They're
them
able
do
to-
it.
No,
By
no,
the
they
time you
can.
hire contractors, it's going to be 2 years.
If a family...
People are willing to get a
It's kind of crazy how, like, it's hard to know, like, really where things actually stand in a situation like this. But I feel like the way that she advocates for this kind of stuff is like the, people that are advocating for, like, the process of, like, bureaucracy. And I think that that's one of the reasons why people are kind of tired and they want to see, like, the Doge stuff and everything. Because there's, like, all these processes and all of these restrictions and this red tape and everything where, like, you just can't, like, it's like things become too big to move.
a dumpster and do it themselves and clean it out.
And they can...
There's not that much left. It's all incinerated.
That's right.
And, it's just going to take a long time if you can do some of it, but a lot of these people, I know that guy right there that's talking.
Now we wait for the show.
I know my people. You'll be on that thing thing tonight. Throwing the stuff away and your site it'll look perfect within 24 hours, and that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to wait around for 7 months till the city hires some demolition contract that's going to charge him $25,000 to do his lawn. I think you have emergency powers just like I do, and I'm exercising my emergency powers. You have to exercise them also.
I did exercise them.
Because you have a very powerful emergency power, and you can do everything within 24 hours.
Yes. And if individuals want to clear out their property, they can. Yes, but you know that you will be able to go back soon. We think within a week.
That's a long time, a week. I'll be honest. To me, everyone's standing in front of their house. They want to go to work, and they're not allowed to do it.
And the most important
a week
thing
is a long
people to
time.
be safe.
They're safe. They're safe. You know what? They're not safe. They're not safe now. They're going to be much safer. A week is actually a long time. The way I look at it. I watched hundreds of people standing in front of their lots, and they're not allowed to go in.
I didn't even realize that when I saw it. Yeah, they took her mic.
Long time, the way I look at it. They're safe. You know what? They're not safe. They're not safe now. They're going to be much safer. A week is actually a long time, the way I look at it. I watched hundreds of people standing in front of their lots, and they're not allowed to go in.
I didn't even realize that when I saw it. Yeah, they took her mic. Oh my god.
All burned. It's gone. It's done. Nothing's going to happen to it. It's not going to burn anymore. There's nothing to burn. There's almost nothing to burn. And they want to go in there, but the people are all over the place. They're standing, and they say, why aren't you going in? We're trying to get a permit, and the permit's going to take them. Everybody said 18 months. You said 18 months. You said 18 months.
Never been a people person. So think, fuck, you ain't people.
Man. A lot more videos, it gets much better.
President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump were able to see the devastation of the Palisades fire firsthand from both the air and the ground. They also met with local, state, and federal leaders to discuss relief.
And now this is what the Palisades to look at today's visit.
David Ellen, this is still going on a little bit later than initially anticipated. President Trump essentially on his way out after that long roundtable, taking questions and speaking, as you guys mentioned, with state, local, and federal leaders on getting people in. Obviously, the president coming to town.
I work in the construction industry around LA. The permitting process is an absolute shit show. No, I have a friend of mine that he works in a construction company in California, and I think he did work in LA. And he said the same thing to me. And I feel like, it's the bureaucratic process.
This thing hits half as
That's
crazy
always
as it
what
looks.
it is.
And
I think it happens with. I think with every system, this is kind of like it's like a cancer. Like you have like an efficient, like well managed system, and then the system grows and gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it becomes oppressive. And then the oppression needs to have regulations inside of it, and then so it's like it just kind of builds on top of each other. And I think that happens. It happens with everything. It happens with companies. It happens with governments. I know it. I think it happens with video games. People make video games. It's entropy or like scope creep, basically.
The people who are on the other side of the political aisle, but everyone knows work together to get everyone. President Trump high above what's left of Pacific Palisades. Jesus. We're seeing the damage up close. What? Right here? The president just sworn into office this week. God damn. To those who lost everything in the fires.
We're looking to get something completed. And the way you get it completed is to work together. It's the governor of the state.
Yeah, I found out that we actually know somebody that had their house get burned down. I just found that out yesterday. I wouldn't even while I was on stream. I was like, what the fuck? Like, a lot of people got fucked over by it.
And we're going to get it completed. They're going to need a lot of federal help.
Governor Gavin Newsom met the president as Air Force One landed at Atlanta.
He's made it.
2 months before, but both found
it makes sense.
Short-term and long-term.
Because the trees are fake. COVID. I don't forget that. And I have all the expectations that we'll be able to work together. And the speedy recovery.
Good done. Tremendous numbers of lives have been affected. A lot of real estate's been affected. Nobody's ever probably seen anything like this.
The president already said disaster aid would only come to Angelinos if the state permits voter ID. Policies. The second demand already voter ID.
Every fresh mag is newly some life.
People are like, wow, I can't believe this happened. What did you expect? Yeah, of course he's... Yeah.
Refuted by the executive director of LA Waterkeeper, who said the president doesn't understand the state's water system. The president also held a roundtable with local, state, and federal leaders where he and Mayor Karen Bass had a lively back and forth about growing frustration from people who want to get back to their properties.
Well, we want you to be safe. We want you to be back in your homes immediately.
But the people are willing to clean out their own debris. It doesn't cost them. You should let them do it because by the time you hire contractors, it's going to be 2 years.
The president was only
5 days, yeah.
Sounds like they got my little gift.
Trump supporters. Politics don't get in the way of the recovery.
Sending Molotov.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's like, this is like a two wrongs don't make a right situation. I think it's definitely mafia tactics to like hold back federal funding if they don't do voter ID. It 100% is mafia tactics. Like, let's be honest, right? It's like, and Trump's done this a million times. What a surprise. Like, anybody could have predicted this. But at the same time, it's also dumb to not have voter ID. So it's like, they're stupid for not having it, but I think that it's kind of not fair to withhold funding from like the actual citizens. So that's my take on it, honestly.
Putting our political beliefs aside, joining together again, I do believe that we can, but just everyone has to put, whether it's ego, their own personal opinions, and just come together, and I think that we can.
President Trump, as I mentioned, only visiting the Palisades fire. He says there's a reason for that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think there's one more of these too. They pay so much taxes. Can't play politics with this. Yeah, I think so too. And they should be helping people, not trying to make a deal. Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I have the same viewpoint on it. I'll see if there's any other information about it.
But we are going to move as fast as we can.
This might be the same thing.
We want you to be safe. We want you to be back in your homes.
But the people are willing to clean out their own debris. It doesn't cost them a lot.
Can.
You should let them do it because by the time you hire $25,000
Right
to
about
do it
now,
well.
Max is be hitting his stride.
We're trying to get a permit,
no
and the
less.
permit's going to take them. Everybody said 18 months. You said 18 months.
Yeah.
You said 18 months.
Safety is always the excuse.
And that was last night on that. Right.
Yesterday.
Mr. President, we're going to be together next week, and during the interim, many of us are involved in, and Tom McClintock, who you know has been an expert on this for years, we are going to be putting conditions on the money that do two things. Require that it be done timely and affordable.
Don't fuck up your friends, Turncoat.
That we protect those who will come afterwards.
They use safety in responsibilities. They use safety in order to maintain a bureaucratic apparatus. And there is a degree of safety that's good,
no group discounts.
but the problem is that things like that have, like what I was saying, that entropy effect where it's just like it breeds more and more and more.
Fire sale. As we speak, there are 6,000 acres burning in my district on the Mexican border. There will be more fires until in any event to release items which will prevent it or at least mitigate it from happening again.
So people say, how do I know? Because this manifests in every single company and in every single group of people, and I think that it's a core human behavior, and it should be an expectation that it would also manifest in the government. I think that excess tends to exceed, and exceeding leads to excess. And whether it's a guild in a video game, whether it's a company, whether it's a video game itself, whether it's a government, whether it's anything. I think that one thing that's common is that like people create problems and then create positions to solve those problems. So that's the reason why I think it's happening, is because it happens with everything. And so, like, what are the odds that this thing that happens with everything is happening? I'd say pretty high.
Looks like 10,000 of death in a 5-pound bag.
Both of those, like water. You know, the party is coming. We're the friend. When the party is coming, that's you're not. In all fairness, we like water.
Yes, sir.
Fire sale.
Jesus, thank you,
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oh God. Holy shit. Yep. See if we can do more of this. Should be an expectation. Be surprised about how many people don't follow simple safety logic.
Fortunately
yeah,
for
of
you,
course not.
I am a patient man.
They talk. The handshake, Is he doing that thing? That thing he does? The handshake pull is so stupid.
Fix the window closed.
Some of the people from the area, I appreciate the government.
Double pull.
Plenty of courses.
From the area, I appreciate it.
Oh God.
Meeting me, Kevin.
Oh fuck.
Very much, and we'll be talking a little bit. We want to get it.
It's ridiculous.
Sentry turrets live.
And
yeah.
Be some ways, but
fifth grade.
By a bomb, right? Yeah. Like you got hit by a bomb.
Most importantly, thank you for being here. All of us. Not just the folks in Palisades, the folks in Altadena that were devastated. We're going to need your support. We're going to need your help. Patrick Bateman, is it? And I have all the expectations. Yeah. Get the speed of the we're going to get it done. And there's not the little Newsom's hand after his handshake. Jesus Christ.
Nobody's ever probably seen anything like this. You can almost say since the Second World War, when you think of it. I mean, nothing like this has happened.
It's like, yeah, for sure.
We're going to get it fixed, and we'll get it permanently fixed, so it can't happen again. And again, we'll be talking a little bit later, and we'll get it worked out, okay?
I appreciate it, Mr. President.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I thought it was going to be round 2 for a minute there.
Now there's literally nothing happening.
How do you plan to...
We got to get it finished. We're looking to get something completed. And the way you get it completed is to work together. The government is state. And we're going to get it completed. And we need a lot of federal help. Unless we don't need anything. We're going to need a lot of help. So, we're going to take care of it.
Yeah. And all the confidence in the world will work that out.
Thank you. I guess some of you have come to
Anyone ever tell me your
No,
face
man,
looks like
I'm
the
gonna be
business
honest.
end
Like,
of a hot
I
dog?
feel like this is what he should be doing. I mean, like, yeah, that's what he should be doing. I feel like the only thing that I wish there was more of is the Ukraine war. Like, that's the only real thing I wish that they had kind of sorted more out of. But I feel like that probably takes a lot more time.
Yep. Yes.
But we're gonna
start the program with artificial intelligence and that massive $500 billion Stargate announcement by Donald Trump alongside Oracle founder Larry Ellison, SoftBank Chief Executive Masayoshi Son, and also the OpenAI Chief Executive Sam Altman.
But to announce the largest AI infrastructure project by far in history, and it's all taking place right here in America. Last month I came to celebrate your winning and promised that we will invest $100 billion. And you told me, oh Masa, go for 200.
Don't blame me. Blame the idiot who dropped this.
Now I came back with 500. Because this is the, as you said yesterday, this is the beginning of golden age.
But look, it is important to note that Trump's main tech pro, Elon Musk, who ironically helped found OpenAI and ChatGPT, poured cold water on this project to an extent. Musk's openly hostile towards OpenAI's boss, Sam Altman, and his company's ability to raise the $500 billion for the Stargate project.
Great. I'd say you finally showed the
challenge the potential of artificial intelligence. Australia right now has a choice. Do we import the knowledge from the global tech giants, Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, or OpenAI, or do we seek to do this ourselves? The answer could make a significant difference into how much value Australia takes from what some call the next leg of the Industrial Revolution. Well, Professor Anton van den Hengel is the founding director of the Australian Institute for Machine Learning, Australia's biggest machine learning research group. It's part of the University of Adelaide, and he joins me now. Anton, many thanks for your time. Let's go to this, because it goes to Australia's sovereign capability as to whether we import this technology or whether we try and do it here in Australia. But we can't surely raise $500 billion if even the US is struggling to do it.
Hey, over here, you
Yeah, indeed, this is a critical point in our development, not only kind of technologically, but also in terms of where our economy is going to go. And although it looks like we have a choice, we don't really. We have to make this leap towards a modern economy. The decision, though, isn't just go and find $500 billion. The decision is only to find out how much. We are, through AUKUS, very tightly engaged with the US. We don't need to replicate what they're already doing. We just need to partner with them and make sure that we progress along with them. So there's enough space in the sun for everybody, and Australia has very much in this space. We can build on it, and we can do it. We just need to invest at a scale commensurate with some of the other nations around us that have already taken it.
So I've already just done a bit of research, and Australia now has 308 data centres and growing very rapidly. In fact, there's a new arrangement with Microsoft, which is committed to spend $5 billion on data centres over the next 2 years. But the question is to go to this truly generative artificial intelligence, this new leg of this industrial revolution. You really need even many more again, don't you?
Yeah, we need more data centers, but we also need those data centers to be running Australian AI. It's fantastic that we're getting investment into more capacity, but what we're missing is investment in our sovereign AI capability. It's one thing to build the data centers that Microsoft can run their models on. It's an entirely different thing to build our own skill.
Trump tariffs, higher oil prices, and exploding government deficits. Everybody is talking about inflation in 2025.
The inflation's coming back.
I don't think this inflation story is completely over.
I'm going to reveal my prediction for what's going to happen to consumer prices in the next year and tell you how my changed over the last couple weeks. And I'm going to explain this to you in 3 simple fast steps. Step number 1, let's go over money supply. This is a chart going all the way back to 1985 to today's date of $11.0 trillion up to all the currencies that non-bank entities have that are available to go out there and chase goods and services. So you can see why this is an important component of what makes prices go up and down. So going back to 1985, the empty money supply in the United States was a quaint $3 trillion. Like a kid's M2. And then you guys know the story from there. We go up, 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 we get this exponential curve. And it kind of flatlines here. We get the GFC.
Here's to finding more efficient ways to kill you.
The banks were lending the currency into existence because they were risk averse for obvious reasons. But then the money supply goes up, and then we hit the survey sickness. You guys know it goes parabolic, literally, to the point where we get to in roughly 2022, where we're just shy of $23 trillion. Now, what's fascinating is what has happened over the last couple of years, where we actually see this number decline, something we haven't seen since the 1930s. So how does this factor into my prediction? Again, there are no certainties, only probabilities. But to answer that question, you've got to go to everyone's favorite, Moody, the millennial with their blue hair. So whatever you do, don't mess up Moody's preferred pronouns. But Moody has an additional problem above and beyond their preferred pronouns. And this is Donald Trump. I'm sure his favorite person on the planet Earth. So Donald Trump comes in and says, I know how I am going to make America great again. I'm going to increase taxes. That'll do it. So everything coming in from China, let's assume that Trump will be 100% tariff. So this good that was going to Walmart did cost $4 and now costs $10. So Walmart has to charge $10 to Moody. Again, they got to make a little bit of a spread here called profit. So the problem is Moody makes $100 per month. Let's assume, just keep the math easy. And $90 goes out in expenses, fixed costs. Okay? That leaves $10 left over. Now, $6 was going to Walmart to buy other stuff that Moody needs to survive. And therefore, they had $4 at the end of the month for disposable income to do things like
somebody tell Carver I just won our headshot
another good
contest.
or service.
Welcome to the team.
In the United States, it definitely impacts the economy. Well,
I could gift wrap this, but why bother?
Now has to pay $10 to Walmart instead of the $6. That means there's no disposable income left over. So it is absolutely true that prices go up here, but they likely go down over there. Because all Moody is doing is simply robbing Peter to pay Paul. I know a lot of you right about now are saying yourself, okay, George, I get it. But what does this have to do with this? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's go back and assume that 2025 looks like 2021 in terms of alright, you're going to have so many currency that's flooding into the economy. The employers are going to be able to raise their prices, and the employers are going to be able to pay their employees more. So let's say Moody's employer is able to pay them an additional $4. Okay, so now they can still, well, let's say they'd have to pay them an additional $5 because AMC would be raising their prices as well. So their purchasing power has stayed the exact same. It's just the level of consumer goods, consumer services, and wages have all gone up the exact same level because you just have more currency. So if the money supply is actually down or flat, that takes us right back into the scenario where it's very difficult to have any celebration of meaning that prices are going up at an ever-increasing rate. Let's just use the CPI as a proxy. I know it's not accurate, but just use example. In a reacceleration of inflation, that CPI would go from 3 to 5 to 9 to 15. If the CPI stays at 3, yes, prices are going up, but they're not accelerating. They're not going up at a faster and faster rate. And if this number were to really go, say like this, then we could get into a scenario that looks a lot like the 1930s, where even though you do have tariffs, the prices are going down to such a significant degree everywhere else that in total you actually have further disinflation, if not outright deflation. Now let's go ahead and look at oil and deficits through this lens. A lot of people assume that if the price of oil goes to 100 to 120 to 150, that's going to lead to significant consumer price inflation or even a reacceleration of consumer prices. But this isn't true because of the dynamic that we talked about earlier. If you want proof, let's just go ahead and throw up a chart of oil, and let's compare this to the CPI in the United States. The last time oil really spiked was right around the GFC. Now, did that lead to inflation? No, it actually led to the opposite. It led to deflation in 2009. Because people were having to pay so much for gas in the car, they couldn't pay their mortgage, which contributed to the GFC, which we call. Obviously, this exacerbated the problem. And then what about deficits? Well, just because the government is spending money like a drunken sailor doesn't necessarily mean they're increasing the money supply. That would involve the Fed, and right now the Fed is my fault on that step 2. But unless the Fed is doing a quantitative easing, then what the Treasurer, Jenny Yellen, in this case, is doing is she's just selling that Treasury, the government debt, she's taking money out of circulation, and then putting it right back into circulation. So on that balance, there's no change in this method.
Step number 2. Now let's look at what the Federal Reserve has been doing, along with the banksters themselves, who create the majority of the currency units by lending.
It will be because they do quantitative easing. I don't think there's too much of a pause button on the balance sheet, at least not for very long. So a lot of you right now are probably saying, well, George, that's the elephant in the room. The Fed's going to do QE, and we're going to have massive consumer price inflation just like the 1970s. Not so fast. Because we have to remember, if the Fed does quantitative easing as a result of a recession or an economic contraction, what the bank's going to be doing? Well, what would you be doing? If you owned a bank, would you be lending more or lending less? They would be lending less. And I think that offsets the increase that we may see through quantitative easing, taking us right back to that M2 money supply being flat. Now, if we have another supply shock because of, let's just say tariffs,